Why is it that the people who build the digital fortresses never get the keys, while the ones who just fancy themselves architects get to play king of the castle? I've always wondered that. Maybe it's because true architects don't need to brag about their blueprints. The structure speaks for itself. And that, my friends, is where Evelyn came in. Evelyn wasn't just an executive assistant. She was the operational spine of Sterling Corp, a woman who could anticipate a CEO's needs before they'd even had their second espresso. For 15 years, she'd been the quiet hum beneath the engine of progress, the invisible force that smoothed out the rough edges, the one who knew where every misplaced comma in a contract might cost them a fortune. Sterling Corp. The name itself sounded polished, expensive, like the sheen on a freshly buffed executive desk. Inside, it was a symphony of hushed footsteps, expensive suits, and the faint, persistent aroma of ambition, often mixed with the bitter tang of over-caffeinated desperation. Evelyn's domain was typically the quiet, elegant office of Mark Sterling, the executive vice president, Mark. A man whose charisma was as polished and as superficial as his perfectly coiffed hair. He spoke in buzzwords like a prophet of profit, his every pronouncement delivered with the conviction of a man who believed he was single-handedly reinventing the wheel, while usually just reinventing the excuse for why the wheel was broken. He was the kind of executive who could charm a snake out of its skin, provided the snake had a lucrative investment portfolio. Evelyn, on the other hand, was more comfortable with code than cocktails. Her passion, her secret, her solace was ethical hacking. When the polished world of Sterling Corp's network started whispering vulnerabilities to her, it wasn't an alarm bell, it was a siren song. She saw it during a routine system update. A tiny, almost imperceptible crack in the digital armor. A backdoor that shouldn't have been there, left ajar like an invitation for a digital burglar. It wasn't just a glitch. It was a gaping maw, a security flaw so profound it could unravel everything Sterling Corp held dear, from client data to intellectual property. She meticulously documented every nuance, every potential entry point. She spent late nights, fueled by lukewarm tea and a quiet, growing sense of dread, building a comprehensive report. It wasn't just a complaint, it was a forensic dissection of their digital vulnerability. She mapped out the risks, explained the potential damage, and offered concrete solutions. She approached it, like she approached everything, with precision, with logic, and with an unwavering commitment to excellence. Her first stop, naturally, was Mark. She walked into his expansive corner office, a space designed to intimidate and impress, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city, a city he probably believed he owned. He was leaning back in his chair, a picture of effortless power, scrolling through his tablet with the bored air of someone who had just dictated the fate of nations. "Mark," Evelyn began, her voice calm, professional, holding the meticulously bound report like a shield. "I found something serious in the network, a significant security flaw." Mark barely looked up. "A flaw, Evelyn? Did the coffee machine run out of Colombian roast again? Because Brenda in HR is already on that, bless her heart, probably filing a formal complaint about the lack of artisanal bean options." Evelyn's grip tightened on the report. "No, Mark, this is digital, a vulnerability. It could compromise our entire system. Client data, proprietary algorithms, everything." She slid the report across his polished mahogany desk. It landed with a soft thud, a stark contrast to the digital chaos it described. He picked it up, his manicured fingers flipping through the pages with an almost dismissive speed. He paused at a diagram, a complex flowchart Evelyn had painstakingly created, illustrating the exploit path. He snorted. "This looks like a kindergartner's attempt at drawing a spaghetti monster. Evelyn, darling, are you sure you're not just overthinking things? You're brilliant at keeping my schedule and making sure I have the right shade of blue tie, but cybersecurity? That's for the IT guys with the neckbeards and the pocket protectors. He tapped the report. Look, the system is fine. We just invested millions in it. We can't have our department heads having panic attacks over hypothetical scenarios. It's bad for morale. It's bad for Q4 projections. We're talking about a system overhaul, Evelyn. That means meetings, endless meetings, budget reviews, vendor proposals. Do you know how much paperwork that is? My assistant would be buried under it. Your assistant would be buried under it. Everyone would be buried under it. It's inconvenient. He leaned back, a practiced smile plastered on his face. Let's just leave this with IT. I'm sure they'll have it under control. Now, about that tie colour for the investor dinner tonight. Evelyn felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. Inconvenient? This wasn't about inconvenience. It was about security. It was about the trust their clients placed in them. It was about the very foundation of Sterling Corp. But Mark, she pressed, her voice losing its usual smoothness, a tremor of urgency now present. This isn't a hypothetical. It's a critical vulnerability. I have detailed steps on how it can be exploited. It's not just IT's responsibility, it's everyone's, especially yours as EVP. He waved a dismissive hand. Evelyn, you worry too much. You're just a bit too intense sometimes, always seeing shadows where there are none. You need to relax. Take a spa day. Maybe a mindfulness retreat. We'll handle it. He gestured towards the door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual important things to attend to, things that don't involve phantom digital monsters. Defeated, but not broken, Evelyn retreated. Her next stop was HR, Brenda, the head of human resources. Brenda, who considered herself a champion of employee well-being, but whose definition of well-being seemed to revolve solely around ensuring the office snack bar was adequately stocked with gluten-free options. Evelyn laid out her concerns again, the report now feeling heavier in her hands. Brenda listened, her face a mask of polite concern, punctuated by the occasional nod that conveyed nothing but a desperate desire to get back to her spreadsheets of employee satisfaction surveys. Evelyn, Brenda began, her voice soft, saccharine. I understand your concerns. Truly, I do. But Mark has assured me the IT department is on top of all network security. They're the experts. And, to be frank, your intensity can be a bit disruptive. We want a harmonious work environment here at Sterling Corp. Constant worry about potential breaches, while understandable, can create a climate of fear, and fear is not conducive to productivity. She opened a file on her desk, a file Evelyn hadn't seen before. We've had some feedback about your approach, some concerns about alarmism. It's been noted that you tend to be a bit overly anxious. The word paranoid has even come up in some discussions. Mark mentioned it. He thinks perhaps you're a security risk yourself due to this heightened state of alert. Evelyn stared at Brenda, speechless for a moment. Paranoid? A security risk? She was the one trying to prevent a security breach. She was the one trying to protect the company. Brenda continued, oblivious to the storm brewing within Evelyn. Look, Evelyn, we appreciate your dedication, truly. But perhaps this role, with its demanding nature, isn't the best fit for you right now. We've decided to make a change. for the good of the team and for your own well-being. She slid a thick legal-looking document across the desk. A severance package, a non-disclosure agreement, an exit interview form. "This is effective immediately," Brenda said, her tone final. "We'll need your company badge and laptop returned by the end of the day. Thank you for your service, Evelyn." Evelyn's world didn't shatter. It simply recalibrated. She looked at the document, at Brenda's placidly professional face, at the framed picture of Brenda's prize-winning poodle on the wall. The injustice of it all was like a physical blow. 15 years of dedication, of quiet competence, of anticipating every need, of being the unseen scaffolding that held the entire operation together, reduced to a few vague complaints and a label, paranoid. She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She simply nodded, her face a mask of polite resignation. She gathered her personal belongings, her mind already racing not with anger, but with a cold, calculated clarity. They thought they were firing a problem employee. They had no idea they had just unleashed a force they couldn't possibly comprehend. As she walked out of the Sterling Corp building, the polished brass door closing softly behind her, Evelyn felt a strange sense of liberation. The city air, usually thick with the exhaust fumes of ambition, felt crisp and clean. The weight of their dismissal, the sting of their accusation, was already beginning to fade, replaced by something far more potent, a quiet resolve. They had underestimated her. They had dismissed her concerns. They had fired her, the architect of their operational stability, all because they were too afraid of the work it would take to truly secure their kingdom. She didn't drive home. She drove to a quiet park, the kind of place where joggers ran oblivious to the corporate battles being waged across town. She sat on a bench, the cool autumn breeze rustling the leaves around her. She opened her laptop. The company issued one she was supposed to return, but which she had, in her infinite foresight, backed up entirely just last week. It was a habit, a necessity, the habit of someone who knew that in the world of corporate chess, you always have your pieces accounted for. She looked at the encrypted drive in her bag, a small, innocuous piece of technology containing not just her personal files, but a meticulously detailed account of Sterling Corp's digital vulnerabilities. Every report she'd written, every email she'd sent to Mark and Brenda, every polite but firm warning she'd issued, all of it was there. And alongside it, her secret weapon, her ethical hacking toolkit. They'd called her paranoid. They were about to learn just how well-founded that paranoia truly was. She opened a new document, the cursor blinking expectantly on a blank screen. The game, she thought, was just beginning, and this time she wasn't playing by their rules. She was writing them. Evelyn didn't waste a single moment after leaving the sterile confines of Sterling Corp. The dismissal had been swift, brutal, and humiliating, but instead of crushing her, it had ignited a cold, focused rage. This wasn't about hurt feelings. It was about principle, about responsibility, and about the utter incompetence that threatened to topple an empire built on trust. She drove to her small, unassuming apartment, a space that hummed with a different kind of intelligence than the polished chrome of Sterling Corp. Here, the servers weren't sleek and silent. They were a testament to her passion, a hum of activity that was her true sanctuary. She opened her laptop, not the one she was supposed to return, but her personal, heavily secured machine. The company laptop, thankfully, had been backed up in its entirety just hours before her termination, a precaution born from years of anticipating the worst-case scenario. The small, encrypted external drive she retrieved from her desk drawer felt impossibly heavy. It contained not just her personal life's digital detritus, but the meticulously organized arsenal for what was to come. For the next 72 hours, Evelyn lived in a digital cocoon. Sleep became a luxury, replaced by the focused intensity of a surgeon preparing for a critical operation. Her workspace, usually a calm command center, transformed into a battleground of data streams and encrypted files. She didn't just organize her evidence, she weaponized it. Every email sent to Mark, detailing the security risks, was cross-referenced with his dismissive replies. Every report she painstakingly compiled, with its intricate diagrams and stark warnings, was filed chronologically. She created timelines, mapping out her attempts to alert management, highlighting their deliberate inaction. The original vulnerability report, the one Mark had treated like a child's drawing, was now meticulously annotated. She'd added forensic analysis from her personal security tools, demonstrating not just the existence of the backdoor, but the ease with which it could be exploited, the precise data that could be siphoned, and the potential financial and reputational damage. She even included a simulated exploit path, a silent digital ghost walking through Sterling Corp's network, gathering phantom data. It was undeniable proof, a digital indictment laid bare. Beyond the technical data, she meticulously archived every interaction. HR's saccharine dismissal, Brenda's carefully worded euphemisms about Evelyn's intensity and alarmism, Mark's condescending pronouncements about her overthinking things. She even retrieved the company's internal security policy, highlighting their own stated commitment to vigilance, a commitment they had clearly violated. The severance agreement, the NDA she refused to sign, was also there, a testament to their flimsy attempt to silence her. She hadn't signed it. That was her first, and perhaps most critical, act of defiance. While Evelyn built her digital fortress, Sterling Corp began to feel the tremors of her absence. Mark Sterling, accustomed to Evelyn's seamless orchestration of his life, found himself adrift. His meticulously managed schedule began to fray at the edges. He missed a crucial call with a potential investor because his usual reminder system, curated by Evelyn, had vanished. The investor, annoyed by the no-show, expressed his displeasure in a terse email that quickly made its way up the executive chain. Then, a far more significant glitch occurred. A critical server responsible for client data encryption began to falter. It wasn't a complete shutdown, not yet, but intermittent failures started to impact critical operations. Clients, reliant on Sterling Corp's promise of secure data handling, began experiencing delays and, worse, inexplicable data corruption. Whispers turned into concerned inquiries, and concerned inquiries began to escalate into outright demands for answers. Word trickled back to Evelyn through a former colleague, a junior IT technician named Kevin, who still harbored a healthy respect for her technical acumen. His panicked text messages painted a grim picture. "Evelyn, you have to see this. Server 3B is acting insane. Intermittent encryption failures. Clients are screaming. Mark's losing his mind. Brenda's running around like a headless chicken. IT is clueless. They're talking about a full system rollback, but nobody knows what data might be compromised. This is bad. Really bad." Another message followed, tinged with desperation. "Someone just forwarded an email from the CEO. He's demanding answers. Apparently, Q4 projections are already in jeopardy. They're saying it's a rare network anomaly." "Rare? Seriously? This is what you warned us about." Evelyn read Kevin's messages, a grim satisfaction blooming in her chest. They called her paranoid. They called her a security risk. Now, their own negligence was manifesting in ways they couldn't ignore, and they had no one to blame but themselves. She knew the Server 3B issue wasn't a random anomaly. It was a direct consequence of the backdoor she had discovered, a vulnerability they had chosen to leave unpatched. The data corruption? That was likely the digital burglar, emboldened by the open door, making its first tentative foray. Her meticulous planning had accounted for this. She hadn't just gathered evidence, she had prepared the narrative. She had already decided on her first precise move. It wouldn't be a frontal assault, not yet. It would be a subtle, precisely aimed strike designed to amplify the chaos already brewing. She drafted an email. It was polite, professional, and utterly damning. The subject line read, "Urgent inquiry regarding data security protocols at Sterling Corp." She addressed it to the company's primary regulatory body for data privacy, a body she knew Sterling Corp had a rather lax relationship with. She then CC'd the head of legal at Sterling Corp, along with the CEO, the EVP of operations, and, for good measure, a prominent cybersecurity watchdog organization whose forums she frequented. The body of the email was brief, almost clinical. It didn't accuse, it inquired. It referenced Sterling Corp's own publicly stated commitment to data security, their adherence to industry standards, and then, with surgical precision, asked specific questions about their current network infrastructure's integrity. It mentioned the recent network anomalies and the potential impact on client data, referencing the very vulnerabilities she had repeatedly highlighted. She didn't explicitly name the back door, but she described its characteristics in enough detail that anyone with a modicum of technical knowledge would understand its significance. She concluded by stating her hope that Sterling Corp would address these matters transparently and promptly for the protection of their clients and stakeholders. She sent the email. It was a single click, but it was the culmination of weeks of preparation, the release of a carefully crafted weapon. She leaned back, a faint smile playing on her lips. She hadn't signed any NDA, hadn't accepted their meager severance. She was still technically an employee, or at least she hadn't been formally terminated in a way that relinquished her rights. And she had just presented Sterling Corp with a public accountability problem that no amount of spin or buzzwords could fix. Across town, at Sterling Corp, the email landed like a thunderclap. The regulatory body, usually bogged down in bureaucracy, would now have a formal complaint and a clear call to action. The watchdog organization would undoubtedly dissect the inquiry, potentially igniting online discussion and attracting media attention. And within Sterling Corp, the heads of legal, the CEO, and the EVP of operations were now staring at a problem far larger than a rare network anomaly. They were staring at a potential class action lawsuit, a regulatory investigation, and a public relations nightmare. The panic was palpable. They had dismissed Evelyn as paranoid. Now, they were beginning to understand that her paranoia had been foresight, and they had just been served a stark reminder that some architects built not just for progress, but for defense. The game had shifted. They were no longer in control. The silence that followed Evelyn's perfectly timed email was deafening, but not for her. For Sterling Corp, it was a symphony of escalating panic. Kevin, her former colleague, sent a frantic text. "Oh my God, Evelyn, you won't believe this. Legal is in lockdown. The CEO is having an emergency board meeting." Mark looks like he's about to spontaneously combust. Someone mentioned external inquiry and data breach. They're all pointing fingers, but nobody knows what to do. They're freaking out. The network anomalies on server 3B escalated. It wasn't just corruption, it was outright data loss. Key client databases, including sensitive financial records and proprietary research, flickered in and out of existence, only to reappear in a corrupted, unusable state. The digital burglar, Evelyn's phantom, was no longer tiptoeing. It was actively dismantling their defenses, or rather, highlighting the absence of any real defense. Mark Sterling, his usual veneer of confidence shattered, found himself facing a barrage of calls he couldn't answer, emails he couldn't comprehend, and a growing certainty that he had gravely miscalculated. Brenda from HR, the architect of Evelyn's dismissal, was reportedly seen near the IT department, looking pale and dishevelled, clutching a stress ball like a life raft. Then the call came. Evelyn was in her home office, surrounded by the quiet hum of her own servers, nursing a cup of herbal tea. Her personal phone rang. The caller ID displayed a Sterling Corp number, but not Mark's. It was the CEO's direct line. She let it ring 3 times before answering, her voice calm and measured. "Evelyn? Evelyn! Thank God. This is Robert Sterling, the CEO. We need to talk. Urgently." His voice, usually booming with executive authority, was tight with a desperation that was almost palpable. Evelyn gestured to her recording device, a small, discreet unit she always kept running during critical calls. "Mr. Sterling, it's a pleasure to hear from you. I assume this is regarding the recent security concerns at Sterling Corp." "Concerns? Concerns?" he scoffed, the desperation momentarily giving way to a flicker of his old arrogance. "Evelyn, our entire client database is on the brink of collapse. We're facing regulatory investigations, media scrutiny. Our stock is plummeting. This is not a concern, it's a catastrophe. And frankly, we believe your departure may have coincided with the onset of these issues." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "Coincided, Mr. Sterling. Or perhaps, as I repeatedly tried to warn, your company's negligence created the conditions for this very outcome." There was a tense silence on the other end. "Look, Evelyn, I was not privy to all the details of your conversations with Mark and HR, but right now we need solutions, not accusations. We need your expertise." "My expertise," Evelyn echoed, a hint of amusement in her voice. "The same expertise you dismissed as paranoia and overthinking just last week? Hindsight is a luxury we can't afford, Evelyn. We need to know what you found, what you did, how we can fix this. We're prepared to compensate you for your time and your insights." The CEO was practically begging now, the carefully constructed facade of corporate power crumbling. Evelyn took a slow sip of her tea. "Compensation, Mr. Sterling, is a fascinating concept, especially when it comes to responsibility and consequence. I believe I have a rather comprehensive report on those very matters." She then calmly laid out her secret weapon. She explained, in stark, undeniable terms, the severity of the security flaw she had uncovered, the back door left gaping by their own negligence. She detailed how he had been exploited, how client data had been compromised and, in some cases, irrevocably damaged. She presented the simulated exploit path, a silent testament to their vulnerability. "The regulatory body has already received an inquiry, Mr. Sterling," she continued, her voice devoid of emotion. "They'll be requesting a full audit of your security protocols. The watchdog organization is already buzzing with speculation. Your stock price is a public record, and the data corruption, well, that's your own mess to clean up." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Then she presented her options. "You have 2 paths, Mr. Sterling. Option A, the narrow escape hatch." She paused for dramatic effect. "Your board, understanding the severity of the situation and the direct correlation between my dismissal and this crisis, offers me immediate reinstatement, my former position with a significant salary increase, a substantial bonus, and a guarantee of full autonomy over all cybersecurity matters within Sterling Corp. Furthermore, both Mark Sterling and Brenda from HR will be immediately and permanently terminated, their roles effectively made redundant due to gross negligence and insubordination. This will be presented to the board as a strategic restructuring to address critical systemic weaknesses. This path requires a swift public acknowledgement of the company's failures and a commitment to genuine security reform. The CEO was silent for a moment, his breathing ragged. Then he spoke, his voice strained. And option B? Evelyn's tone remained steady, but her words held the cold finality of a guillotine. Option B, Mr. Sterling, is the nuclear option. You refuse my terms. You attempt to stonewall the regulatory body to spin this as a minor technical issue to keep Mark and Brenda in their positions. In that case, I will release the full, unredacted report, including the exploit path and the evidence of your deliberate inaction. To every major cybersecurity publication, every financial news outlet, and every client whose data has been compromised. I will also be filing a formal complaint with every relevant regulatory body detailing your willful negligence and the potential for ongoing breaches. This will result in catastrophic fines, the complete loss of client trust, potential bankruptcy, and the personal ruin of everyone involved. Your careers, your reputations, Sterling Corp itself, all of it will be irrevocably destroyed. She let the silence stretch, the weight of her ultimatum hanging heavy in the air. She could practically hear the gears grinding in the CEO's mind, the frantic calculations of damage control. Finally he spoke, his voice a mere whisper. Option A. We accept option A. The resolution was swift, decisive, and brutally efficient. Within 48 hours, Sterling Corp announced a strategic realignment aimed at bolstering cybersecurity infrastructure and leadership. Mark Sterling was transitioned to a consultancy role, a euphemism for permanent dismissal. Brenda from HR was pursuing new opportunities outside the organization, a polite way of saying she was fired. Evelyn was reinstated, not just to her old position, but with a title that reflected her new authority, Chief Cybersecurity Officer. Her salary doubled, and a substantial bonus was wired directly into her account. The media, initially tipped off by Evelyn's carefully placed inquiries, reported on the swift and decisive action taken by Sterling Corp to address a critical security vulnerability. They lauded the company's commitment to transparency and their proactive approach to safeguarding client data. The cybersecurity watchdog group published an in-depth analysis praising Evelyn's foresight and the company's eventual, albeit belated, adherence to best practices. Evelyn, now operating from a newly established, state-of-the-art cybersecurity command center within Sterling Corp, watched the news reports with a quiet sense of vindication. She hadn't sought revenge for the sake of revenge. She had sought justice, and in doing so, she had corrected a profound wrong. The paranoia they had accused her of was, in fact, a finely tuned radar, detecting threats they were too blind, too arrogant to see. As she reviewed the new security protocols she was implementing, the hum of her own servers back home a distant echo, Evelyn felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The corporate ladder she had been unceremoniously pushed off had just been rebuilt, with her firmly at the top. If watching corporate hubris meet its match, and the overlooked rise to power sparks a fire in your gut, consider giving this story a like and subscribing to the channel. Your support fuels these tales of calculated justice. They called it paranoia. She called it preparedness. In the end, the only thing Sterling Corp was truly vulnerable to was the truth, and Evelyn was the one who delivered it.